Hey folks, before we get started here, I have a couple of things to tell you. First, we're sponsored by Audible, and you can go to audiblepodcast.com/WTFpod for a free audiobook download. More on that later. Second, happy Independence Day, America, in celebration of our nation's birthday. And to get you excited for the new show on Comedy Central, Drunk History, go to facebook.com/drunkhistorytv and experience American history in a new way. See how some of the most iconic moments of the past 237 years would have unfolded if there were cocktails involved. Like the page, and that's like with quotations, around it, like Facebook, like the page, and share the images with your friends. Do that, because I think our founding fathers would have wanted it that way. And now, let's do this.
Lock the gate!
Are we doing this? Really? Wait for it. Are we doing this? Wait for it. How? What the fuck?
WTF.
And it's also, what the fuck? What's wrong with me? It's time for WTF. What the fuck?
With Marc Maron.
All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers? What the fuck buddies? What the fucking ears? What the fuck nicks? This is Marc Maron. This is WTF. This is the 4th of July. And I, of course, thought, what better way to celebrate the 4th of July than to have an Australian on? Actually, I put no thought into that whatsoever. It's just the way the cards fell. Nick Cave is on the show today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my interaction with Nick Cave in just a second. But before I get too far into this, if you didn't know, one of our newest sponsors is Hulu Plus, and I've got a great deal for you to try Hulu Plus at a special rate. Hulu Plus gives you total control of thousands of TV shows to watch whenever you want, wherever you want. This is what you need to watch TV on your tablet or mobile device. Classic shows, current shows, full seasons, folks. Stuff like Parks and Rec, SNL, and classic Arrested Development, among others. Hulu Plus is only $7.99 per month when you go to huluplus.com/WTF. And right now, get an extended free trial of Hulu Plus that is only available to podcast listeners. That's huluplus.com/WTF for your extended free trial. I do know it is the 4th of July. I do know that I never talk to Dane Cook, but every year, starting last year, he invited me to his 4th of July party. And I'm not dropping names. It's just, I wouldn't see me and Dane hanging out together. And if you've listened to my interview with him, that was an interesting interview, that one, actually. I think you can get that. Well, you can get it if you get the app, obviously, but I think that one's available over at WTF Premium on iTunes, where I was cranky. I just quit nicotine lozenges, and I was a dick to Dane Cook. I got emails for that thing, man, for months. Why were you such a dick? I didn't even like the guy, and you were a dick to him. You were a dick. So you want to hear some classic old dickishness from me to Dane. Well, sometimes, man, having a conversation is not the easiest thing in the world. I mean, today's episode's a good example. I had Nick Cave in here, and look, I'm willing to go where anybody wants to go. Quite honestly, I'm not looking for controversy. I'm not looking to sandbag anybody. I just like it to be a conversation. And sometimes, rarely, getting by somebody's, thing and getting into just organic conversation can be tricky. It can be tricky. And this interview with Nick was, I don't have any experience of Nick Cave. I don't know him personally. I've never listened to other interviews of him, but I was getting frustrated. And I tell you, man, when I tell the story about, talking to him, the Russell Crowe story is worth every minute of whatever I was experiencing. And I don't usually talk about this, because people are going to, have their own experience. I don't really share my experience or what I felt about an interview, but I do remember kind of thinking oh my God, please talk to me. Please, I was needy with Nick Cave. I don't know if you can hear it, but let me know. Let me know. So today is the 4th of July, and as some of you know who listen to my show regularly, know that I live in primarily a Latino neighborhood. So the 4th of July started about a month ago. Leading up, just you get the random clusters of fireworks and gunfire as sort of a palate cleanser for what's about to happen. I don't know how connected I feel. Do you ever think about that? How connected are you? Do you actually sit down and reflect on how great it is to be an American and how fortunate it was that we won our independence and what a struggle that must have been? And really, I don't know if I have the mind. I don't know if it's a an empathy or an imagination to really picture, what happened for us to get our independence. And I'm not sure I know the history as clearly as I should. I know there were redcoats involved in Britain, and there was a tea party, and we had to fight the crown to get our own place, and then there were some colonies, and then there was battles, gunfire, and a lot of people died, and then we got free of it, and we built some states, and then the states sort of spread like cancer throughout. And then we all got our own autonomy, kind of, under a system of, the federal government. And then there's the three branches. And then, we have a constitution. And then occasionally throughout the years there have been fights over this and that. And now we are sort of a conglomerate of sorts, all living under a government that seems to be basically a money laundering operation for corporate interests. And we all just struggle to be okay with that and hope nothing goes so horribly wrong. And also, whatever's going on in the name of America is not, completely out of control. And obviously it's all gotten out of control, and we don't know what the fuck is going on. And we just sort of mind our own business and sort of plow through our lives, hoping to get by, hoping to make a few bucks, and, and hoping we get lucky, and just keeping the focus on ourselves. Happy 4th of July, America. You, the guy listening, who's just minding his own business and putting the blinders on and just saying, fuck it, I do what I can. Look, I'm just trying to get to lunch. This is for you this day. You deserve that. America, you deserve it. You, not the states, not the collection of states, not the sense of community and country, but you, little man, little woman, who is struggling just to kind of maintain and insulate your own narcissism. That's what freedom is now. Come on, you've got choices. Just go online. You've got a million choices, a million things you can distract yourself with, a million things to say like, wow, I wonder if anyone else has seen this. Or, my God, is it wrong for me to jerk off to this? Or, hey, did that really happen? Is this a legitimate news site? Oh, my God, I'm going to buy some stuff. Wow, I did all that and I didn't even leave this chair. What an amazing country we live in. God bless America, or just bless America, and your right to sit at home alone in front of your computer and have the experience of complete and utter freedom without leaving your chair and by being completely distracted by bullshit to make you not feel everything else that is going on in the world, which is mostly horrific. Look, all I know, folks, is I'm gonna go up on my roof tonight. I'm gonna climb the ladder, and hopefully, neither me nor Jessica will fall down the ladder and make this holiday a negative memory, or perhaps some sort of tragic thing. We'll stand up there and just wait. We'll have the panoramic view of my neighborhood. There's some organized fireworks in the distance usually, but they're usually just spontaneous blasts. You never know where they're going to come from, but you do know that whatever those productions are, wherever they got those fireworks, it was probably not legal, and they probably should be monitored somehow. But you're grateful for that on this day. You're grateful for people breaking the law and importing fireworks that are probably beyond what they can even handle. God knows if anyone's injured during them, but just for my roof, after I've spent the day online poking around, if I spend the day on Twitter with my amazing freedom of speech to cause as much shit or divulge as much as I want to thousands of strangers, indulging in that freedom, I go up and I enjoy the freedom to watch illegal firework displays blocks away. And I just hope that perhaps I'll have some good food. Perhaps I'll not get hit by a stray bullet. That's another concern in my neighborhood. People shooting guns into the air straight up, thinking like, well, it's not pointed at anybody, without really considering the arc of that bullet. It's going to go up. It's got to come down. Hopefully one of those won't plow into my brains as I stand on my roof thinking like, wow, this is pretty great. We didn't even have to drive for this. Yeah. Negative memory. Yeah, I don't want to lose one side of my brain because I was watching illegal fireworks and just a stray bullet wasn't even fired at me. It fell out of the sky. Maybe I'm being negative. Look, folks, we have a lot to be thankful for. We do live in a great country. We do what we can, kinda. Most of us do what we can. Not really. Some of us do a little more than others. Some of us do a lot more than others. Some of us do nothing at all and somehow rationalize that and actually think we are doing something just by thinking the thoughts. Happy 4th of July. Let's do an Audible plug. Why not? Why not do an Audible plug? Hold on. Let me pull it up. Let me pull up Audible on my computer because I have the freedom to do that in America. audiblepodcast.com/WTF pod is what you can do to get your free, is that right? Independence, yeah. Audiobook download. Here, let's try that. Hold on. And boom. Sure. You can get, there's over 100,000 titles, audio products, podcasts, books, shows. This is only good in the United States and Canada. And I just searched for Independence Day. And what do we get? We get the audiobook Independence Day. I don't know what that is. How about Revolutionary War? Huh? Sure. The American Revolution. A history. There you go. Get that. A Basic History of the United States, Volume 2. Beginning of the Republic. There you go. Not something I should get. So I wouldn't have to speculate about things that actually happened and are documented. audiblepodcast.com/WTF pod. Free download. 100,000 audio products. Only available in Canada and the United States of America. Happy Independence Day. Am I right? Now let's talk to an Australian. I got Nick Cave in the studio. Hang in. You need a knife?
Nice knife.
Nick Cave's undoing the knife. Opening the knife, which is a fine way to open an interview.
Well, it's a beautiful knife.
You know, I don't...
it's got a grip.
Yeah. It's a good knife. It was given to me by a German girl whose boyfriend left it behind. And I'm just glad he didn't have it when I was at the, when I was with her.
Yeah.
That's how that goes.
Okay, this is not live or anything like that.
No, it's not live. It's a podcast. It'll go up.
Podcast.
It'll go up in a bit. This is the future, Nick.
I don't understand the future.
You don't? It's where you go to people's houses and you walk in and go, "What the fuck am I doing here?
What am I? Where am I?
Why am I at some guy's house? Well, this is not the way show business used to be.
Nice room. No, actually, this is kind of old school, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
This is old school.
Well, thanks for coming, man.
So you're a scriptwriter, eh?
No, I'm a comedian, and I do this now. I primarily did comedy for the last 25 years, and I ended up in the garage. I've written some stuff.
I just noticed you have Final Draft over there.
Well, yeah, I wrote I got a TV thing, like 10 episodes of a single camera, half-hour business. You're a screenwriter.
I do. Are we on now?
Sure.
Right. Yes, I am a screenwriter. I was dragged into the business somewhat, I have to say.
Yeah, how did it go?
Well, I was asked to do a script by John Hillcoat, a very good friend of mine, who I've been watching. He's been friends since school days, really.
Yeah.
And he'd been struggling with a script to do an Australian Western.
Yeah.
And he kept getting people to write them, and they were American Westerns that were sort of arbitrarily dumped in Australia, and people didn't really have any idea of what about Australia.
Yeah.
And that was my complaint with when he would show, as a friend, he would show these scripts to me.
Yeah.
And in the end he said, "Look, you write the thing then."
Yeah.
And so I went, "Oh, I'll give that a go."
So you were
so we wrote the proposition. And I thoroughly enjoyed doing that,
Because I guess Australia really does have its own Wild West, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole history there that can grow,
It's not dissimilar.
Right.
It's equally brutal.
Yeah.
It's to do with, genocide and
the standard
and
Western
bad
stuff.
weather.
Yeah. A lot of heat and genocide
Yes,
of an
exactly.
indigenous people. There you go. That's a Western. Then you build on top of it. Someone makes money and they try to forget about it.
And deny it.
That's right. Exactly. Like, how often do you go to Australia? Do you live there? You don't live there anymore.
No, I live in the UK.
And you grew up there for most of your life, all your life.
I left when I was about 20.
Yeah.
I went to art school
In Australia?
in Australia. Did 2 years, failed art school.
Yeah.
Had this sort of band, which was a kind of side project
Yeah.
that got us into, free drinks and got us into clubs and stuff, that kind of thing.
What year were you looking at? I mean, like, who was, because like I just read this book on AC/DC.
Yeah.
And they were huge, right?
Oh, massive, yeah.
Did you go see them when you were a kid?
No.
Never.
No.
Not your bag.
I always liked them, but,
Yeah.
I always we had this TV show called Countdown.
Right.
And they were off and on,
Uh-huh.
and they always were a riot and absolutely unique.
What was
thing to
it?
see.
And when you were like, what kind of world is it? Because I don't
they were kind of heavy. They were a heavy rock band.
Yeah, sure.
But Bon Scott would go on Countdown dressed as a schoolgirl and stuff like that. I mean, they were always very anarchic and never took the thing too seriously. So.
Yeah, a good sense of humor. What part did you grow up in?
Well, I grew up in the country, like in Victoria, rural Victoria, till I was the school that I went to, Wangaratta High School.
Yeah.
They all had a little bit. They had enough of me.
Were you a problem?
Cast me out into the world.
You were. Were you a problem?
No, well, I had my problems, but both my parents worked at this school, and I think they kind of got exhausted by walking into the staff room and having
their kid.
You know what he did today.
Yeah. They were both teachers.
Yeah, my father was the English teacher there, and my mother the librarian.
So you were brought up around books.
Totally, yeah.
And because when I listen to the new album, and there's about 3 or 4 of your records I've listened to a lot in my life, and it looks like you've done about a record a year for the last 20 years, almost.
Well, it's not really like that, but we made a lot. Yeah.
And it just seems like you draw from a lot of. It's hard to identify, what you're your own thing, and that's a hard thing to do. Yeah, but you seem to be influenced by ballads, westerns, even tiki music. There's like a lot of textures going on, man.
Well, we've been doing it for a long time, and I mean, there's the thing that I admire most about the Bad Seeds is really their facility to change and to grow, and that's really what we've done, and that's why we still make records, I guess. What
was the original band when you started after art school?
Who was in it?
Well, I mean, what kind of music were you playing then?
We were in a band called The Birthday Party.
Yeah.
And that was very confrontational.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a kind of strange, fucked up kind of jazz element, but violent, very violent.
Violent jazz?
Violent jazz, yeah, that was the genre.
Yeah. And how long were you playing?
Physically violent.
Because I don't have those records. Like, I know, like, what I know about you is that, like, I think the Tender Prey album was the first one that kind of blew my mind, and I listened to a lot. But I didn't end up going back to all of the stuff. But then, like, as records would come out, every couple of records, I seemed to lock back into what you were doing. And it seems like all the women that I was with were, Nick Cave freaks, which is, you have a profound effect on certain types of troubled women.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've been surrounded by them all my life. I understand them.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think I have a deep understanding of troubled women.
Do you have sisters, or was your mom troubled?
No, but no, I do have a sister. Yeah, absolutely. And the only trouble that she had was the fact that I was her older brother. I think
that guy's my older brother.
Yeah, I have a very strange relationship with women in general around my music. I mean, there's some that very much understand it, and some that think that it's an anathema and that it should be
stopped.
Yeah.
That guy.
There should be a law against it.
He's a demon.
In fact, I think there is a law against it
in some places, with some women, with some men who say you can't listen to that record anymore.
Yeah, it's managed to get itself a reputation, and unfairly, I think. I tend to look at particular issues around the relationship between men and women, and address some of those issues. And because I write about those sorts of things, people assume that I am like that as a person. So
I have that
often. I'm sure you get it too.
Well, I mean, I get it with songwriters. I mean, I've talked to guys in here before. You know, I talked to Niccolo in here before. And in my naivete, I mean, I always assume when somebody's writing, because that's what I do. I write about myself, but I always, like, in my mind, you know, you're this, you know, tormented cowboy of sorts that takes on the big existential problems and milks the poetry out of them. That you're out there fighting the fight.
All of that is true, apart from the cowboy bit. I'm not a fucking cowboy.
Okay.
Not that I have anything against cowboys.
I mean that in the best of ways. A loner, a guy out there against the elements.
I thought you were talking about Brokeback Mountain or something.
No,
like
sir.
That. No, okay.
No, sir.
Oh, the other kind of cowboy.
Yeah, I'm talking about the real deal, like Road Warrior. I mean, any sort of loner out there in the great on the great frontier fighting the good fight.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Do you struggle with this stuff? I mean, like, you know, how are you with the devil these days? You all right?
I'm not so concerned with the devil.
No. Have you been?
I think I took a lot of drugs.
Yeah. Which one? What was your stuff?
Kind of
mix it up.
Yeah, more or less.
Back in the day,
I didn't smoke a lot of pot.
Did you get strung out?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went back and forward, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And through that period, I became quite interested in religion, and I even went to church and stuff like that.
You went to church high or what, on a break?
No, actually, I had a kind of weird. I mean, I was insane around this time. You have to understand.
Sure.
And I had this idea that if I went to church in the morning, drug sick.
Yeah.
And then I went and scored in the afternoon. I was leading a well-balanced kind of existence.
Sure. The yin and the yang.
The yin and the yang.
Obviously, yeah.
And, but eventually I got those sort of demons under control, and I haven't been into church again.
Okay. So church
the drug thing took longer, of course.
So the church thing was just a reaction to.
Well, the church thing, looking back on it now, is probably the more destructive of the two, I would say.
I don't know, man. It's hard to figure out. You know, you got to hang your hope on something sometimes, don't you? I mean, I did my time with drugs. I don't really have a God in place, but you know, if you're out there in the wilderness of your mind without anything to hang your hope on.
No, I'm not so sure about hanging your hopes on things, but I do find that our capacity to want to believe in things outside of ourselves is something that's really endearing of the human species, and
it's in there too.
I don't ridicule it. In fact, it doesn't matter how corrupt and destructive some of these belief systems are. I still think we need to be able to believe in things and outside of ourselves, you know.
No, absolutely. What do you?
I mean, religion. I mean, religion, or the idea of the divine and stuff like that, to me, is very much connected with the creative process, anyway. So, I find it very difficult to distinguish the two. And for me, I've spent the last, 30 years or stuff, kind of building an imaginative world that is different than our own, and that it is to do with magic and the absurd, and in that world, there some kind of God exists and all of that sort of stuff. It's just, but it is within a particular imaginative world. You know.
Were you conscious of that? When did you become conscious of that? I mean, is that a retroactive, like a retrospective thing?
No, or? I think there was actually a moment for me back around a particular record that I did. It was a birthday party record, and I remember writing this song called King Ink, actually, which was it wasn't the first record, maybe it was off the second record. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting there listening to that and thinking that there was something in there that that after making several records before that, which were heavily influenced by everybody else and didn't have their identity, there was something in this song that was mine, and that was new in some kind of way. It was a kind of character-driven narrative song, and it sort of set the path really for songs right up to now, really, that are about developing a kind of world that is a different world than the one that I actually live in.
So you saw yourself as sort of a protagonist in this world?
No, I just found that it was a kind of, there was something there that I could go inside and sort of lose myself, and you know, that it kind of saved me from myself in some kind of way. Can
you say what it was specifically, or was it a tone, or was it an angle?
There was a kind of it was tonally.
Yeah,
tone is a nice way of putting it.
Because I mean, you do have this amazing consistent tone. You know, when I listen to the records, you know, lyrically they're all different, but no matter, you know, what the rhythm or the structure of the song is, there's something that happens. You know, you definitely fill a space. So does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
And so I guess occupying that space is sort of what you're talking about. There was a moment where you realize that this is where I live now, kind of.
It's, look, you know, I mean, I write in an office. It's not well, it's not like this that we're sitting in here, but it is in the sense that it's chaotic, and it is a place that I go every morning. Mm-hmm. So I get up in the morning, get dressed, kiss the wife goodbye, and walk down into the basement and stay there all day and write. That's what I've done now for many, many years, in different offices, on different desks, in different countries. But it's always been that same work-like process. But part of that appeal of that is that I feel that I'm entering into a world that is of my own making, and it's different than the so-called real world. Sometimes I'm spending so much in that other alternate world, the idea of which is the real one and which is not the real one becomes slightly confused, maybe. But definitely there is something about losing myself, and the creative work starts in this place on my own, in this particular room.
Do you get up?
And it is transformative.
Right.
You know, I feel that I become at one with the things that I'm sort of that I'm writing about.
So it's almost like it's a ritual space in a way.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And do you get up at the same time every day, or do you just kind of roll?
I get up very early. I've always got up really early.
Just naturally.
Yeah. Yeah.
In those moments where the two spaces sort of become indistinguishable, you know, what happens in that moment? How do you, like, you know, you get lost in your head, or you get lost in the narrative?
I've found that I've been able to separate the two.
Yeah.
I've found that it's essential to do it, but I don't like to work creatively around other people unless I'm going into the studio with my band. Mm-hmm. And even in the studio, really, for me, that kind of private work has been done in the office. I've sat down and I've written the songs and I've written the words, and it feels like that's been done.
Right.
And to go actually into the studio, it's a different process to sit and work with other people. But largely, I don't feel it's fair to inflict the creative process on my children or my wife, or because it's a bloody business, right? It's a bloody business, and it's not something that people should be witness to unless, you know. Yeah.
When you say inflict, I mean, because I'm curious, just as a creative person myself, you know, I know that it's a clever joke on some level, but there is some part of the creative personality that is a little unruly. So when you
unruly, selfish, self-interested, willing to inflict all manner of horrors onto our loved ones. God knows what we do to our loved ones in the pursuit of our particular creative dreams.
That's right.
I think being creative and artistic, you by nature cast a long dark shadow over the people in your life. And I try and do that. I try and separate that process from my kids don't know what I do. I mean, they know I'm like a rock star and stuff like that because they can go on and Google me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Watch YouTube and stuff. Not that they do, but
so you try.
They don't think that they don't see the work process that's involved in doing that sort of stuff.
And when you get out of the ritual space, when you get out of the work mind, you behave like a decent person as opposed to a lunatic.
No.
So you're still doing your homework.
Well, no, I'm just a different sort of lunatic.
When you started out, when you say like that moment you had when you realized that you had your own groove there, or that you could figure out there was this imaginative space that you lived in, when you look back at the records before that, who were your primary guys? Who were your influences? What was, rocking your head?
I mean, mostly American influences because I grew up in Australia and the influences that we had in Australia were largely through TV.
Right.
And it was American TV that we watched in Australia pretty much.
Yeah.
So the things that really molded me, apart from certain, I mean, for example, we when I was 11, I'd watch the Johnny Cash show on TV.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
In this little country town.
Yeah.
We'd sit there and I'd watch the Johnny Cash show.
Yeah.
Or I would come home from school and watch I Dream of Jeannie and F Troop and The Addams Family and all of these, Bewitched and all of this sort of stuff. This was the stuff that we grew up on, and all of those American influences. I didn't even see them as American. They were just like the stuff we watched on TV. So it was actually quite strange for me to come to America and people say, why do you keep writing about all of our cultural heroes and stuff like that? And you're an Australian. And I'm like, oh, right. Oh, you own those people.
Yeah. It's very funny, though. I don't know if you've said that specific list before in another interview. Maybe you have, but out of just that list in and of itself explains a lot.
Well, those three women, I have to say, Elizabeth Montgomery from Bewitched,
yeah.
Barbara Eden from I Dream of Jeannie, and Caroline Jones from The Addams Family were the kind of triumvirate, of my sexual awakening as a child.
And Johnny Cash was a way that you could walk through the world.
Yeah. Johnny Cash I used to watch with my mum and dad. We would sit and watch TV. We watched the Johnny Cash show, and there was something I picked up on, I think, as a child that my parents were ambivalent about this guy. That he was kind of like he was bad.
Yeah.
He was an outlaw.
Right.
He was the man in black and all of that sort of stuff. And maybe from an early age,
You got that?
I got that.
Well, he's a heavy presence, man. I mean, I remember seeing that when I was, I'm a little younger than you, but I mean, he was like that voice and he was a big dude in those songs. I mean,
I love that stuff.
Yeah. And he covered one of your songs. He covered what, Mercy Seat?
Yeah. In the end, he covered the Mercy Seat, exactly. And I sang with him in on the next record. I went into the studio with him
on the Rick Rubin record.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah.
And how was that for you to meet that guy?
It was amazing. He was not well at all.
Right.
But we were talking about the transformative process that I was talking about, going into the office and losing yourself in your work. When I met him in the studio, he was very sick. He was very frail. He needed to be helped down the stairs. He had some kind of diabetes thing where when it went into the light, it went from light into dark. He couldn't see. So when I first saw him, he was blind and coming down being helped down the steps to sing this song together, this Hank Williams song that we decided to sing together. And I was wondering how he was going to do that. You know, and then he just sat down with his guitar, and he just became
Johnny Cash,
empowered and Johnny Cash, and just started singing. And it's like, okay, you know, it was an incredible thing to see.
It's a trip though when you meet somebody that you've held in a certain presence for your whole life, and they're now old and fragile, and there's a humanity.
I can't begin to tell you what that meant to me, really.
Yeah. Was it? Was there a sadness to it?
No, I didn't find it sad. I found it hugely inspiring. Mm-hmm. You know, he was an old man. You know.
Yeah.
I didn't find it. You know, he was an old man, still knocking it out.
Yeah.
And people have differing opinions about those Rick Rubin records. And
what's your opinion of them?
Well, you know, I think there's some beautiful stuff on them. You know.
Yeah. I had Jacob Dylan in here, and he felt like that Cash was too fragile. That perhaps he may have done too many of those.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, to be, if the way I saw it, I don't think he would have. I think rather than it kind of weigh heavily on it, I think it kept things going for him.
Sure, yeah,
you know, and maybe. But I liked that. You know, I thought he did some beautiful stuff on those on those. But I have heard that argument. But I didn't witness that myself. I witnessed a man rejuvenated in the studio by what he was doing, not depleted by what he was doing.
Right.
Or that feeling of him being used up or something like
right. That. Yeah, I feel for better or for worse that when artists continue going on, it's usually what keeps them alive and focused.
Why not?
Yeah. What else are you going to do? Just sit around?
Yeah.
So, like, well, with Johnny Cash, how about? Well, it seems to me that part of what you were talking about in terms of what you do with your music, I mean, he was able to tell stories. Yeah, there seems to be some ballader element to what you do a little bit. Do you find that?
Yeah, he's a great storyteller in that way, and he takes command of a song and command of a story, and you've got to, if you hear it, you got to follow the story.
Yeah.
Now, I personally, I love that when Johnny Cash does it, but it's just for me to write a song, I write narratively. I've tried it other ways, and it's just, unless a song has some kind of narrative element to it or visual element to it, I can't get my head around it. So. And it's something that unfortunately is not something that I like about what I do, in the sense that I don't think people should have to listen to a song and listen to the fucking story. You know, like you just want to put on a song and it gets you in the heart and, changes your mood and all of that. So you don't have to kind of listen to 6 verses of a narrative story that's going on, type of thing.
But that's probably the oldest form of song there is, though. I mean, people are capable.
It might be, but for me, the songs that I really love are those kind of fractured things that I don't really understand and just affect me in a particular kind of way. So I mean, I have been over the years trying to develop a different way of writing narratively or visually that doesn't require that you hear the first verse and stick it out till the end.
Start it over. I was spacing out. I need to get back into the story.
Well, and I think that the new record or the last couple of records I've done, especially this new record, it draws you in narratively. Yeah. But you're not required to follow the story as such.
So. You can check in and out and grab little pieces if you need
to. I mean, it is, and you enter a world when you listen to this particular record, and in that respect, I'm really proud of that.
And with this record, the cover's stunning. That
cool, eh?
Yeah, dude. Who's that?
That's my wife.
I was going to ask you.
I feel blessed every time I look at her.
Yeah, I would feel blessed if I were you.
Yeah, I was steady on there. But...
Yeah, all right, buddy. I'm not going to push it.
No, but that has come under a certain amount of criticism, that cover, by a certain. We were talking about these women before.
Who?
Just certain people have thought that there was there he goes again, exploiting women and objectifying women and all of that sort of stuff. And I just want people out there who may that it is my wife. It was a photograph taken by our dear friend Dominique Isserman, the French female photographer, who was actually doing a photo session about another thing with Susie, who was in between costumes in my bedroom. She took off the one costume, was naked. I happened to walk in, and Dominic said, "Go and open the window over there." And I went over and opened up the window. She took the photo and told me to leave, that they were working. And this photo, we just saw this photo and thought it was a beautiful thing. So it was very much a photo of a woman by a woman, and not set up by some kind of misogynistic,
that's sort of ridiculous,
sexist,
ridiculous criticism. You get flack like that about other things?
I get it all the time. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I mean, but I don't know what the argument is. I mean, what does your wife do for a living?
She's a model.
Oh, so okay. So she's a professional.
Yeah.
Objectifying is part of the gig.
Yeah, but anyway, it wasn't something that the beauty for me of that cover is it wasn't set up, that picture. It was very much just a natural sort of thing that happened, and it was a moment in time, and I really love that.
Yeah, it's a great cover. Now, when this record, in terms of like how you look at your records, like what was I listening to today in preparation? I listened to No More Shall We Part. I listened to Let Love In. I listened to part of Tender Prey. Now, this record, you definitely seem mature, more mature, less raw. And I'm going to listen again for what you're telling me, that you're sort of switching up your style a bit in terms of the poetics of the thing. But when you in terms of like not relying on narrative.
Yeah.
When you go into making a record, is it one process where you're like, I'm writing a new record, or do you take a bunch of songs from a period?
No, it's very much, I start on a particular day. It's in my calendar. Today is the day I start writing the new record. So, I'm not that kind of songwriter that's just always picking up a guitar and kind of gets another one and sticks it over there. Yeah. And eventually they have 13 and they go into the studio and record it. Mine is very much a project that starts at the beginning. I haven't written anything for a year or something like that, and sit down without any idea about what I'm doing whatsoever. I go into that space feeling empty, depleted, uninspired, the whole thing, and for the next 3 or 4 months in the office, I just work away and start piecing together little ideas and eventually getting myself a record.
So it's all words at first, not melody.
There's a certain amount of songwriting that goes, music that goes into it, but more I'm concerned with finding the lyrical tone, as you say, for the record. So
when you earlier on in the career, I mean, you lived in a lot of different places. Now, were these creative decisions? I mean, like I know you.
To live in different places?
Yeah.
No.
How'd you
end up?
Women.
There's always women.
Berlin?
Berlin was lots of women.
Uh-huh. What years were you there? Was that the peak of it?
I was there for 3 years and left just as the wall came down.
So what record came out of those? What record came out of Berlin?
God. I don't know. Well, Tender Prey.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, The Mercy Seat that was written in Berlin.
That record is fucking intense, man.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way that's like raw as fuck.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, I haven't listened to it for about 25 years or whenever I made it. But it is there's some really good stuff on that.
What was it about Berlin? Because I have no point of reference about it, but it must have had some impact on you. I mean, people have gone to Berlin. There was a sort of dark, romantic sort of appeal to the place.
Well, I'd come from Australia, where in Australia I was under the impression, because we used to get these English magazines, the NME and Sounds and all of that sort of stuff, that London was this kind of incredibly interesting musical place, and if we lived in London, every night we could go to this gig and that gig, and we'd look at the back page of the NME and dream of what could happen. And we went over to London, and it was the most deadly kind of dark, miserable place where whatever was happening, whatever had happened in London in the punk era, was well and truly over, and it was just it was washed up.
Was that early 80s?
Yeah, and we went there in the winter, and we had no money, and and we were just a bunch of kids from Australia. Yeah.
So this
trying to have a good time.
The big trip. We're going to London.
Yeah,
where it's all at.
We're going overseas, as we call it in Australia. We're going overseas.
Yeah.
And then we managed to get our act together enough to do a small European tour, and we hit Berlin, and we were suddenly kind of dragged into a artistic community that lived in within the walls in that little island that was West Berlin. That was unbelievable.
And who was in that community?
Well, the German band Einstürzende Neubauten.
Oh yeah.
Who were incredible. There was a bunch of filmmakers, Wim Wenders.
Is that where you met Wim Wenders? Yeah.
So it was just this kind of hot pot of kind of cross-referencing creativity that was amazing, and we were kind of welcomed into that world. And
that must have been mind-blowing, because I mean, you guys were. You were doing interesting music and you were pushing the envelope, but like those guys seemed like Einstürzende and Neubauten. How did you even take that in? Had you known about them before?
No, we just went there. In the end, Blixer Bargeld, who was the singer and guitarist of Neubauten, came and joined the Bad Seeds. But they were extraordinary.
Did you? Were you able to? Did it?
I mean, I've never heard. I went into the studio a lot with them just to witness what was going on in those sessions, and
because that had some momentum. It was like there was a lot of. It was industrial, correct?
It was industrial, but it was. They were trying everything. I remember going into the studio, just passing the studio, and Blixer said, "Come down to the studio," and I went in there, and they were all sitting in the booth.
Yeah.
And not in the actual studio, in the booth, and you could hear this. And they're all kind of listening to it really intensely, like that. And I kind of looked in the room, and in the middle of the room there's this pile of offal, of kind of guts, and this dog that was mic'd up, that was kind of eating away, and they're all kind of listening to it, going,
this could be a tune.
So they and another time I went in there, there was one of the guys, Mufti, who was a big guy. Yeah. And there's Andrew, who was a little guy. Andrew was mic'd up, and I came in, and I was hearing this boom, 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 and I kind of went in the studio, and Andrew was up against a wall, and Mufti's punching him in the chest with this little mic kind of attached to him, and they're getting this incredible kind of bass drum sort of sound.
Oh my God!
So they were doing really kind of interesting sorts of things, and they made these extraordinary records.
Well, as a guy that's coming out of Australia, and you walk into this environment where this type of creativity is happening, which I think is uniquely Berlin. It's a
Berlin thing.
But I mean, how did that blow your mind? Was there a moment where you're like, "Holy fuck!" There's no limit to what I can do, or
there was that. But I mean, we were already the birthday party were already doing stuff that was that had alienated us from what was going on in London.
Like contemporary pop music.
Yeah, because it had all become that kind of pretty safe sort of toe gazing, shoe gazing kind of music.
Who were those bands then? Well, I mean, I can't remember.
Echo and I don't know. Echo and the Bunnymen.
Sure. So it was like whatever the dark part of new wave became, in some weird way.
I mean, it was kind of lame to be honest.
Yeah, sure.
And I thought so. I mean, I'll probably run it into that guy the next time I'm doing a festival. But I mean, it was just that kind of period where the air had gone out of the balloon,
right?
And there was a lot of kind of very uninspired stuff in the wake of punk rock. I guess.
Sure. But not in Berlin.
Well, not in Berlin. They were kind of they were pushing things, and so we were kind of and that's what the birthday party were doing as well. We were doing very violent, confrontational kind of concerts, and they weren't translating in London. People didn't know what to make of us, mostly because we were from Australia, so they didn't have a kind of cultural reference for us. They thought we were playing indigenous music, or they didn't kind of. They didn't. I mean, that's not to say everyone felt that way, but a lot of we were kind of misunderstood. We felt, and in Berlin we weren't.
And you guys would do a pretty big show, right? I mean, you're almost like, I mean, you're a big dude, and at that time, I mean, was it more like I feel bad that I'm not as familiar as I could be with those records. But was it leaning on the macabre a little bit? I mean, were you? No,
the thing about the birthday party shows were that they were quite physically violent between what was going on stage and what was going on with the audience. They were kind of battlefields on some level.
Did you draw blood?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Were you compelled by Iggy at all?
He was always a hero.
Yeah.
He was always so. They weren't. I mean, if it wasn't for Iggy, I don't think anyone would be doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
So.
Did you ever see Iggy? Did he ever come over to Australia?
I've seen him many times.
But when you were younger?
Not back then.
You just kind of knew about it.
We just we knew about him, and there was a small group of us that knew about him and knew about the MC5 and all of that kind of stuff,
Like, let's talk about Wim Wenders for a minute, because, he's not a violent filmmaker.
No, not at all.
And when you first met him, about what point in his career was he at? Because I know you appeared in some of his movies and you did some music in
yeah,
couple, right?
I've done music to a lot of Wim's films.
Was it Wings of Desire? Did you do?
But Wings of Desire was the big one. That was his big film. And his big dramatic film, at least. And I mean, he's done very big documentaries and music documentaries and stuff like that. But
he did Paris, Texas, too, right?
He did Paris, Texas.
That thing's amazing.
That was
Ry Cooder.
Before that.
Oh yeah, before Wings.
Yeah, I think so.
And
then he did. Then he did Wings of Desire. Yeah.
That was
we were in that. We were in that.
Yeah, it was a black and white movie with wasn't Peter Falk or no Bruno
Peter Falk.
Peter Falk and
Bruno Ganz.
Bruno Ganz, right? Did Wim Wenders do The American Friend? That's a great film. That's a great fucking movie.
Yeah.
That was an older one.
That was before he'd made that before we went to Berlin.
70s probably.
Yeah, that was great, that film.
Oh my God! And what was your relationship with him like? You just kind of hung out, or you? How does it work? With a director?
I didn't know him that well.
Yeah.
And then he kept wanting to have dinner.
Yeah.
Which was a weird thing back then for me to contemplate anyway.
Yeah.
That anyone could even eat anything back then.
Yeah.
But we would have these dinners, and he would remain virtually silent throughout them, and kind of. And then we had the third dinner. I'm like, hey, listen, Wim, what do you want to ask me something? And he goes, yeah, would you do some music for my next film? And I'm like, yeah, well, sure. But and now, I know him really well these days. So.
When did you become like? Because it seems to me that at some point you shifted into a different kind of space. Because when you talked about changing your style or looking at just phrases that could mean whatever they mean to a person, I mean, that sounds like Leonard Cohen to me. Like that's what he did in a lot of his songs. Were you
what's that?
Which is create a poetry that is not necessarily a specific story, but can have its own life.
Yeah.
And were you influenced by him a lot?
Yeah, I was very much so. Especially early on.
Yeah.
There's the record Songs of Love and Hate, which I was just a kid in Wangaratta, in this country town, and this girl I knew, the sister of a friend of mine, had this record.
Yeah.
And she had a little kind of bungalow out the back where we would kind of go and smoke cigarettes and pot and stuff like that or whatever.
Yeah.
And she just had this record by Songs of Love and Hate, and we used to play it, and I couldn't believe this record. I couldn't believe in how the stories and how sort of angry it was, and it is an absolute. I mean, I go back and listen to that record sometimes, and it's just this remarkable thing. It's so angry and kind of wounded sort of record, and there was something about that really that had a huge impact. And opened up all sorts of doors for me.
In your the way it made you feel.
Yeah, I mean, just even though I was just a kid, really.
How old do you think?
Well, I don't know, like
14, 15.
No, maybe 15 or 16.
Yeah.
So I can't remember, but it maybe 14 or 15.
Yeah.
It just spoke in a way that a lot of other stuff didn't speak to me.
Have you had a chance to meet him now?
No.
Never have?
No, never met him.
That's bizarre.
I know. We have a lot of mutual friends and stuff like that.
He just lives down. He lives over here. He's got. I think he's got a little house right over there, off Olympic.
Well, the girl who Dominique Isserman, who took the photograph for my cover, has done photos for his covers, and she's a dear friend of both of ours, actually. So she's always sort of saying, Leonard says hello, and I'll say hello back.
I can't believe that you guys haven't been on a thing together or done. Have you done any covers of his songs before? Yeah,
I mean the first song off the first record, I think, that the Bad Seeds did was a cover version of Avalanche.
Oh yeah,
off that record.
Yeah, and the guys that you're in your band now, those are the guys you've been with the whole time.
No, the last original member left before this new record, Mick Harvey.
Yeah,
but that's not to say I haven't been working with these guys for a really long time.
And you have kids?
Yeah, I do.
How many you got?
4.
Wow.
Boys.
All boys?
Yeah.
And from different women?
I have twins.
Yeah.
They're from the same one.
Yeah. And then a couple
my current wife.
Yeah.
Or my wife, not my current wife. Sounds like a John Lee Hooker song or something like that.
Sure.
When my first wife left me, you know that song?
Sure.
A John Lee Hooker song.
Yeah,
beautiful song. But and the older boys are from different mothers.
And
they're 21.
So you got grown kids.
Yeah.
They know who you are.
They know who I am. Yeah.
Do you get along with them all?
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
And how old are the twins? They're younger?
They're 12.
How does that, did that do anything? Did that change you? When you were, because it seems like the first ones you were probably still a little out of your mind, but the twins must have come when you were a little older, obviously. Did that change the way you looked at things in any way?
I don't know about that.
Really?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it changes things in the sense that but I have 21-year-old kids, so it's not like the first time I've experienced this sort of thing, but
right.
It does ultimately show you that there is something that exists outside yourself that is kind of important. What I mean outside of the kind of the work that you do and all of that sort of stuff that can not so much obviously that are important, but that can bring you the joy and
sure.
and that sort of thing. So.
Well, that's good. Joy's good, right?
Joy is good. Yeah. Joy is very good.
Does it not come easy for you? The joy.
No, much what I do is joyful.
Yeah.
It doesn't appear that way. But really, the working process with the band, to me, to play a gig, or not always, but if things are going well on stage, it's a joyful thing for me.
Sure.
And if going in the studio, it's a joyful thing. Being with my children, being with my wife, these bring me joy.
That's good. So I have this weird idea that everyone who comes from Australia at a certain level of celebrity has to know each other. Do you know Russell Crowe?
I do know Russell. Yeah. I know Russell really well.
You do?
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
He read the script of The Proposition,
right?
Which is a film I wrote with John Hillcoat, which was the Australian Western, which he championed and was almost in, but that didn't work out. But we that didn't work out. But he eventually rang me up at home and asked me if I wanted to write Gladiator 2.
Of course, if you want that movie, who are you going to go to? Nick Cave is the guy.
And which for someone who had only written one film script was quite a ask.
Did you do it?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. And what happened with that script?
It ended up, where in everyone's it didn't make it. Didn't see the light of day.
When you did something like that, what did you bring to that? I mean, what was the story for the second Gladiator?
Well, that's where it all went wrong. Very briefly, it was Russell Crowe. Because I'm like, hey, Russell, didn't you die in Gladiator 1? He's going, yeah, you sort that out. I'm like, all right. So he goes to purgatory.
Yeah.
And is sent down by the gods who are dying in heaven because there's this one god. There's this Christ character down on Earth who is gaining popularity, and so the many gods are dying, and so they send Gladiator back to kill Christ and all his followers. And so this was already getting in. I wanted to call it Christ Killer, and in the end, you find out that the main guy was his son, so he has to kill his son, and he's tricked by the gods and all of this sort of stuff. So it ends with this, he becomes this eternal warrior, and it ends with this 20-minute war sequence that follows all the wars of history right up to Vietnam and all of that sort of stuff. And it was wild.
That is wild.
Russian tanks. And
so that was the last third of the movie, or the last.
That was the last thing, and
wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, no, it was a stone cold masterpiece.
And how did Russell Crowe react to that when he read that?
I said, "What did you think?" Don't like it, mate. What about the end? Don't like it, mate.
Oh man. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, do you like that script? I mean, do you?
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed writing it very much, and I enjoyed writing it because I knew on every level that it was never going to get made. So
Christ Killer, the second Gladiator.
What's called a popcorn dropper.
What about? Do you know Nicole Kidman?
I met her. Yeah.
Is her
briefly?
Isn't her family like a huge family in Australia, like big cattle?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know.
I thought they were big cattle ranchers.
We're not.
I know you don't all know each other.
We don't all know each other.
I know. So, what about books? Are you writing any more books? When you wrote you've written a couple.
Yeah.
And do you set down? Is that a different process? Do you do that with the calendar again? Say, I'm going to write a book.
Yeah. Well, you got to do that in some way. You got to sit down, and you can't do a bit here and there if you're going to write a book. You got to get on a roll and write the thing. I wrote one a couple of years ago called The Death of Bunny Munro, which we're hoping to make into a movie.
You're going to write the script?
It's written.
The script is written.
Yeah.
And how are you going to get that done? In Australia or here?
It's set in England, so it's going to be.
Is that where you're living now? By London or not far?
In Brighton.
Yeah.
Do you know that? It's down underneath London on the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You live right on the water?
I do, yeah.
That must be great.
Yeah, it took me a while to get into it, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I was never a sea person.
Really?
I mean, I grew up in the country, and everything that happened that was of any interest or importance to me through my childhood happened down by the river. I was like a river guy, and we would go on holidays with the family to the seaside, which I never really liked, the Australian beach experience, and which was just, it was too hot, and there was all that sand, and there was that kind of way the waves just sort of lap back and forth like that.
No drama to it.
I mean, it was a family thing.
Right.
And everything that happened down the river was much more secretive and illicit and forbidden and all of that sort of stuff. So I was always, the river experience was always much more interesting.
Is that where kids went to do their thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. The dirty
I mean, not just the dirty thing, but anything that involved sort of daredevil, life-threatening kind of stuff, jumping off railway bridges and all that sort of stuff. But now I live by the sea, and I've gotten to sort of accept the monotony of it.
Yeah. Do you just go out there and you look at the ocean?
I look at it from my window.
Yeah. Does it?
This is England we're talking about.
Yeah,
it's grey.
Yeah.
and there's pebbles and.
That seems fitting.
No, but it's actually very beautiful. It's very beautiful.
Did you live in South America as well?
I lived in.
Because I did some research.
Sao Paulo did you?
Yeah, a little bit. Doesn't seem like it.
No, you're doing a good job.
All right.
I lived there for 3 years in Sao Paulo.
I can't even imagine what that was a woman thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did that have any effect on the?
That was a woman thing and a real sort of. I was tired of living in England, and I lived in a particular part of London that was particularly grim. And
what part was that?
Clapham.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds grim, doesn't it?
Why were you living in a grim place?
I just ended up there, and I went on tour, and walked out of the airport at Rio, and the sun was shining, and the architecture was relatively modern, and the streets were swarming with beautiful women, and I didn't go home for 3 years.
Was there something creatively that was sparked there at all? I mean, like, when you talk about Berlin, I can see Berlin in you. Was South America compelling?
It was compelling for different reasons. I made a record or two. That I did some good stuff there. But
which ones?
I think the Good Son was done there, and whatever that one is.
Let Love In. Or I don't know, Henry's Dream?
I don't know.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, maybe some of that too, yeah. But anyway, I was there for a few years, so, and I had a kid.
Yeah.
And went back to England.
But musically, you're not one of those people that's like the Latin field infused.
To be honest, between you and me, I couldn't bear it. I was sort of, kind of hauled along to every goddamn samba club you could imagine, and to be honest, it was the rhythm it's complicated.
Well, let's keep it simple.
I'm a very kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of, Johnny Cash is about as complicated as I can.
Well, Nick Cave, thank you for talking. I hope we did all right here.
Yeah, you did great, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
That's it, America. That's it. Happy 4th of July. Don't hurt yourself. Don't lose any fingers. Don't blow up any things. Be careful out there. Nick Cave was interesting. I told you that Russell Crowe story was worth it. Am I right? I am right. Go to WTFpod.com for all your WTF pod needs. Get some merch. Get the Lipson deal if you want to start your own podcast. What else? Leave some comments. Enjoy yourselves with what there is to enjoy there. What have I got coming up? I'm going to be in Seattle next week at the Sub Pop benefit thingy. I don't know what that is. I know it's for a good cause, though. I'm sorry, I just burped. Oh, my God. Pull it together. Pull it together, man. Pull it together. Dude. Go up to the roof, man. Be careful. Be careful on the ladder. Let her go up first. Then who's going to hold the ladder for you? I got to have a guy come over and hold the ladder. Maybe I'm just not going to go out.